Zachary Dukic is the best Zach in Canada. With a rating of 2233, he is a FIDE master. And me? I'm only 2005 FIDE ELO. In round 2 of my last FIDE rated tournament, in which I played a Smurf in the first round, you might have seen that video. In round 2, I was playing against the best Zach in Canada, Zachary Dukic. Since forever, when I was young, he was a little bit older than me and always way better. So I had the black pieces and I had the chance to play him for the first time in my life. Here we go. He used to go e4 his entire life. And specifically for that tournament, I was trying out less prep and more sleep, and it panned out because he started with knight f3, for which I would have been zero prepared, and I was zero prepared anyways. So I tried something new. Like I played I reversed prepped my opponent. He prepared this to surprise me, to get me. And then I played something I never played on chess.com with 38,000 games. You can just check them and prepare exactly what I play against. But no, I played d5, g3, still normal, and now I go with this new system, g6. So the idea is to go bishop g7 and e5 to get the center against this ready opening. My opponent goes bishop g2, bishop g7, and now d4, preventing my e5 push and, pulling a lot of squares in the center. So here I'm out of book, but it's not so dramatic where I'm crying myself to sleep because development is quite easy. So I go knight f6. This is a small blemish of a mistake. So I learned after the game that you actually have to go c6 first to prevent white from going c4, because you always want to meet c4 with taking that pawn and being able to defend it later with b5 to keep that pawn up, in exchange for white having a lot of play in the center. So what does knight f6 do? It gives this c4 push eventually. So castles, c4, very nice. I play c6, and now my opponent takes, which is a decision I was quite happy with. Although, as we said earlier, I'm threatening to take, but I was happy with this because now this is a symmetrical pawn structure, which is good. As the lower rated opponent in me, I'm trying to not make things complicated, keep things simple, and eventually pan out into a draw if I can with the black pieces. Because winning here, it would have to be like kind of difficult to unbalance from here on. He wants to unbalance the position, make material odds, make it chaotic, where his calculation will overtake mine and beat me at this game of chess. So a lot of psychology going on early on in the game. A lot of Zachary-ness. Symmetrical position from two Zachs playing each other is kind of crazy. Of course, that would happen, of course. So this is the matrix. Knight c3, I go b6. This is the most popular try. This is also good. b6 to develop the bishop is the wrong plan here because white will just have time to pile up on this c7 square. As you'll see, my opponent follows the right plan here. Goes bishop f4, directly targeting this. I was not doubtful of this beforehand because I thought I could always push out the bishop, but this was actually wrong. So I go bishop b7, and after rook c1, suddenly I'm facing some small problems. Like knight b5 might be coming in, and overall I can't really defend this square. So, and I don't want to play a6 here to defend this square because then b6 is softened up. So let's say a6, queen b3 I was scared of, and this is already +1 for white. Just like a little, ever so slightly small move, mistake. So you have to watch out. So I played knight h5. It's still relatively equal, but white has a small edge here. My idea is to push f6 if my opponent goes bishop e5, and this was a mistake. So this is what my opponent should have played. Bishop e5, trying to trade off my great bishop, fianchetto bishop defending my king. And after f6 is engaged, then you trade the bishop for this dead knight, give me the bishop pair, and white is better after queen b3, going upon and pressuring this weak diagonal, which was very crazy to me. But my opponent played bishop e3, just steady, and now I have to make a choice. Now you're seeing my arrows because I already analyzed this game in depth, but I have to make a choice here. Do I stop this knight b5, knight c7 with knight c6, which would stop this rook on this open c-file, or what else do I do? Like, I didn't really know. Do I just go back and lose the time and this bishop's move is free? I didn't know what to do. But I said that for sure with knight c6, It prevents this knight b5, knight c7, but gives a huge tactic, which I had to see beforehand. I did see it, and I decided to play into it anyways. So I went with knight c6. My opponent rushed at the opportunity and played knight takes d5. And now my opponent gets what he wants. He unbalances the position to his favor and makes things tactically complicated. This is also objectively correct. Now, at the time, we don't know that it's objectively correct, but his evaluation was correct, was better than mine. What I had seen is that, okay, I have to take, and the idea for white is that you have a discovered attack on this queen and knight, and basically white will win back this knight with a pawn up, and now black has two options to survive materialistically. Like, we want to survive with the same number of pieces on the board. We have two options: queen takes a2 or queen takes bishop. And so I went into this thinking minimum queen takes a2, but I didn't like this even before knight c6. So I said, if we go into this, I would go queen takes g2 check. And this is what I played. I sacrificed my queen against a FIDE master. Forces king takes, and my idea is very simple. Now I can take this knight with a discovered check on the king. So now I have three pieces, three minor pieces for a queen. So that's 9 points, 9 points. But my opponent has a pawn. Not only that, he has a central pawn. But more than that, so above the material imbalance and the fact that he has a very nice dynamic pawn in the center here, I inherit the bishop pair. So that's a huge advantage. Specifically, this bishop targeting the king, it's a light squared bishop that cannot be erased unless it's by pawn. So f3, e4 would erase this bishop. But that's the only piece that white has that can stop this bishop. Pretty fascinating to me. But again, given my bishop pair, I have a terrible knight that's out of play. And if you saw my Amsterdam recap that I did not post, I should post my Amsterdam recaps. I won a game against a 2180 because his knight was out of play and I sacrificed a piece for it. And that ended up winning for me. I should just post those. Like this video if you want the Amsterdam recaps. They're coming soon. They were played in October. Fantastic games. I just didn't have time to post them at the right time. So here is the position. I have check on the king. My opponent goes pawn to f3. I had seen all this before I played knight c6. You have to, because it's all forced. That's chess at this level. You have to see it. You just have to. I had seen, however, that on knight g4, which was going to be my move before knight c6 was played, bishop f2, and now I can just take the bishop, and I thought that this position was quite balanced. Maybe a small edge for him, but the three pieces against queen usually is pretty good if you can keep rooks on the board to guard the back rank. You'll see that's a big theme in this game. But in my calculation, I completely missed a small detail which changes everything about knight g4. Here there's bishop g1, which seems obvious to us now. But in my calculation, all the way back from before knight c6, I forgot to think about the fact that the king moves up. Of course, I saw king takes my queen, but to retain that the king stays on g2 and clears the square for this bishop to go to g1 all the way frontward over here was what I missed. And now I took like a 20-25 minute turn and spent it on the fact that this is bad for white because of this move. Bad for black. Because eventually my knights will have to disperse. h3, g4 is coming. And my knights will be like on h6, f6, and it's really not looking good. I came up with a brilliant tactic I found. Because also white is threatening this invasion, rook c7, which was another component to this, which made me not play knight g4 finally. But I had this. And this I spent another 10 minutes on. The idea is really very cool. Is on rook c7, there's knight d5. And here I'm preparing a royal fork. And I'm threatening this rook. And if you take this knight, I have a discovered double attack winning this queen on d1. Quite insane, right? But, you know, white doesn't have to do that. And then I had to spend time on this, threatening g5. And this looked very ugly to me. Like something like this with e4, and white has all the cards. Again, mission accomplished for white, blocking my bishop. My knight is out of play here, and my 3 pieces need to be active so that there's reasonable compensation for the queen sacrificed, which is not the case here. So instead of playing knight g4, I played knight c6 after a 25-minute turn, and white is way better, +1. Although knight c6 was the best move, white is plus 1.5, and he plays the best move here. I had seen queen a4, I had to play my best against it. The idea here is that d5 and rook c7 is coming at lightning speed. And if this happens, it's only a matter of time. A pawn gets taken on the queen side, another pawn falls, it's just like apples off a tree. Isaac Newton would know a lot about that. So I went rook ac8, defending my knight and defending against this open c-file. My opponent went bishop f2, which I felt was a little slow, and was. So he has to go with d5 now. It's unquestionably super winning for white if he does this. It opens the c-file, but more than that, okay, so he was scared of knight a5. I had like knight here, but I still thought that he gets to trade a pair of rooks on, and then he goes rook c1, trades all the rooks, and then this queen comes in. And we also calculated blindly after the game that this was looking really good for white here. Takes or queen e8, I'm thinking between both. But let's say bishop takes, queen check, bishop here, bishop h6, knight g7, only move to defend against mate. Queen here poking at these foreign pawns. And then we had seen this. We calculated this blindly after the game, just like in conversation. It was crazy. And then what did we see? We saw queen c8, threatening e4 to overload the bishop and win the knight. And eventually black loses a pawn or something here. So that was a crucially winning opportunity for white, but he goes a little bit slow. He goes bishop f2. And this near equalizes the game. White is still plus 0.8, so almost a pawn up of equivalence. I rushed to the opportunity to prevent d5. You guessed it, pawn to e6. No, rook fd8? Okay, pawn to e6 first would have been better, but okay, this defends against d5, so it's reasonable. Rook fd1 was played almost instantly. Now I go with knight f6, defending against this, e4, and now e6. And now we have a completely okay middle game. My opponent still has an edge, because if he can manage to trade both pairs of rooks, this back rank is weak enough where I think that these pawns fall anytime. But here we go. This is the position. And I have finally equalized in the fact that my knight is back into play on f6. Huge, because this knight can jump to d5 if allowed. My rooks are centralized. Huge. You want good pieces and good squares. This bishop is not the best for now, but has great potential. So does this one, x-raying the king through 3 pieces. Excellent. Now we have to play solid. My opponent goes with queen b5, a slight mistake here, says the engine. b4 and b5, better, just to put pressure, kick my knight, and weaken this weak a7 pawn. But queen b5 advances the queen too close to the sun being my minor pieces that can use this queen's power to eject it from the b5 square and then gain some territory. And that's what I try to play. So I find the only move here that's pretty nice. It's knight e8. Super nice move. Knight e8, I'm maneuvering to centralize my knight even more, and then opening up this bishop on the long diagonal. Superb move. My opponent plays quickly d5. And I was like, what? Oh, by the way, this doesn't work because of takes first. Very important. And knight takes, there's check. And on bishop takes, then the knight falls. I just wanted to clear that tactic up. But my opponent plays d5 very quickly. It scared me because I had seen everything against d5 and thought this was completely fine for me. And it is. Like, it's just still small advantage white, but it's completely fine for me. And so I go with takes first. And now my opponent takes a turn longer than a minute. And I'm saying to myself, if it's longer than a minute, he's hesitating on which piece he wants to take back with. Because I was getting excited about e takes d5. I'll tell you why. If e takes d5, I thought knight e5, the knight is centralized, can't be kicked easily. If you go f4, I can take, and then takes with check. I thought this was pretty Pretty scary. And if rook takes, I just take here, and then if d6 threatening d7, I have these nice bishop takes f3s. And so this is not possible now. So in this pawn will be blocked on the next move. The second it is, my pieces are extremely strong against this queen, has to go back, and it's looking like the tables have turned. So I think he thought that on takes, he had this very nice tactic after knight d6, which completely loses. And so this is a tactic I avoided because I had seen it before knight e8 was played. Here he has takes, which was frustrating to see through, sacrificing a queen. So this is a brilliant move. And after knight takes, he has take here. Although I gained the queen back, you know, and I'm up a piece, this is completely losing. If rook here takes, rook c8, and the queen next move. And what else to do? There's takes with check. It's like just an awesome combination. But on takes, I had knight e5, which he saw kind of after. And so he now takes a 10-minute turn and plays rook takes d5. And I had prepared knight c7, forking these two and forcing the trade of rooks with check. And now we're forcing the ejection of this queen. So queen a4, and I had b5 with a very nice variation. If the queen goes here, now I can infiltrate with rook d2. And this is really scary. Like knight d4 coming in, bishop d4 coming in. And this is the dream scenario. We're also threatening this. It's very scary to defend this. I would take black here for the first time in the game, actually. So I play b5. My opponent goes all the way down to c2, which I hadn't seen, but makes a lot of sense. Like it's blocking rook d2. And now I have to make sure that this is not a problem for the remainder. Also, bishop takes a7 is a threat. If knight takes, queen takes c7, I drop a pawn, and maybe more. So I play my knight. And this is where there's a lot of value for you to take in. So we have a material imbalance, which was what my opponent wanted to accomplish into the game, theoretically speaking, as the higher rated player. But now the tables have turned, and they have turned because I have placed my pieces on good squares. Both bishops are on the long diagonals, very good. This is not a fully ripe bishop yet, but you'll see it becomes spicy. The knights are centralized. So for your knights to max their looks maxing, they have to go in the center squares. So they have to occupy d5, d4, e5, e4, and to do so, you need some knights in. So I'm gonna quiz you in one move from now, and you're gonna have to make some thinking. The rook is on one of two open files of this position, and it's on the open file nearest from the king. I think this is a perfect placement for the rook. It's also guarding the bottom rank. So you have to maximize the squares for every one of your pieces. And during the game, I was conscious of this, which felt like a huge step forward in my chess development, to just conscientiously think in this way and not just always calculate like a dog. My opponent goes rook d1, meeting my rook on the file. And now the quiz is here. What do you do here? Do you trade? Do you do another move? Do you move your rook out? What do you do? Of course, as mentioned prior, we want to keep our rook because otherwise our bottom rank is going to be weak, and some squares on the 7th rank as well. But we don't want to move out of action because rook d7 would be given. So we want to block this rook. So which knight should we do so? And this comes back to what I just told you. We want to take this knight in. This knight is seriously better and now equalizes the game flat on its face. Why? Because this is the more wing knight of both knights. This is the more central knight. It can guard more central squares and also guards this diagonal in case I move this pawn later on in the game. So this knight is what I like to call the Magnus knight. It's when you develop your knight or you maneuver your knight 2 diagonal squares away from its initial placement on the board. And getting a knight to these 2 squares is extremely hard in chess from your own camp. And this is a big achievement. And Magnus always puts a knight on one of these 2 squares if you look at his games. So I'm just going to go ahead and call this the Magnus knight for the rest of my career on honor of him because I feel like he has less legacy in the game of chess. He doesn't have like a super well-known opening named against him. I know he has like the Magnus Queen's Gambit. Magnus Queen's Gambit. But it's not so popular. This is the Magnus Knight. We're giving him a legacy. Magnus, I know you're watching. So here the queen is attacked. Queen d2. And I thought this was a weird move. Because now it's my tempo. It's my initiative to be lost. So I go. f5. Marching forward, and now you're seeing this knight, you know, completely barricade what otherwise would be a weakening move. And now we're just thrusting and pressuring on this king. And if takes, it becomes very serious very quickly. Check, king here, and I don't even want to go in specifics, but it would just be winning. Minimum takes is my point. My opponent wanted none of this and played extremely fast once again. Both of my opponent's moves of under a minute, queen a5 being one of them, and the other one I mentioned earlier, were both mistakes. Oh, the other one was d5. Were both mistakes. So a huge improvement place for my opponent is playing less fast because it was very clear that these two were mistakes. Now black is better. Queen a5. So it's going on a weak square, but I'm not that worried because this is so strong. And I was sincerely calculating here for a minute and being like, has he just given a pawn? What's his idea? I saw that an idea was queen takes rook, and he revealed to me after that it was for different reasons. So I take here, very skeptical of what my opponent's like. He's not going to take here. I'm taking here with check, and it's winning. And so he takes, and he takes very fast. I was so worried. And he told me after the game is that after knight takes, bishop takes, he thought he was up an exchange. But in fact, he's not. And I have two pieces for the rook, and this is winning for me. And on top of that, I have an intermezzo. E takes f3 check, king moves. And now the big question, would you keep the bishop, preserve the bishop pair against this bishop, guarding the super weak diagonal, or would you take? I took a minute on this, but I wanted to save my time from maybe serious parts of this endgame. So I just took and then brought my knight into action. My opponent played rook d7. And I saw a really nice move here. And it's the only super clear winning move, knight c5. And I think my opponent overlooked this when playing rook d7. The idea is that on rook c7, you think you might be winning a piece, right? Because you're overloading everything. But I have check. King here is the only way to keep the test going. If you go down, I just move my bishop, and this knight has improved, so you can't just let that happen. And now f2. Brilliant move. Threatening to queen. And suddenly this rook can't go here, and it can't go here to defend the f1 square. So the king has to go to e2, and now I have bishop g2, using all of my pieces that are always attacked to keep this promotion going. And so obviously my opponent is very strong. He didn't play that. He played rook d8, king f7, and now he played king e3. I got scared here for a tiny second that this was working. Like if my knight moves now, it's like a fork. But okay, amateur hour is over. I saw king e7 right after rook d7 was played. I saw king e7 here at this moment. And now there's no time for takes because now I take. And if rook here to attack, now I have knight d3 because the rook is off of this d3 square. And then king here, and the same pattern repeats, check, and king e6, king f6. And here it's winning by the same exact pattern. Like both pieces are attacked, you can't do anything about this because of the passed pawn. It's really saving me in this endgame. I don't think it would be as winning without this pawn. So after this, he goes king e3. Really nice move, 2 diagonal squares away from my knight. I cannot control this f2 promotion square anymore, and this knight will have to maneuver to get this going. Notably, I'm thinking during the game, where does this knight go for me to be winning? f5 or g4, those are the answers. But I go a5 first, preventing b4, which was a looming threat. And now g4, so now I'm like, okay, he wants to play on the king side. I don't know what to do on the king side, so I played h5. Slight mistake. A little bit better was b4 and just making weaknesses here. The rule of 2 is to make 2 weaknesses across the board so that white is overloaded and then just collapses. But I didn't have that plan in mind. I just wanted to clear up the king side. And after rook h8, I had seen that I can go here, only move, really good move. It's a great move. And after h4, I instantly said to myself, that's the losing move, like in my mind. And for a very concrete reason. The g4 square is now gaping open. So h4 was played and I go knight d7. And he missed this move, he told me after the game. Very simple, and you can't stop the knight going to g4 now. So he goes check. I'm even willing to give a pawn. Here this doesn't work. I said to him I saw bishop c4, bishop c6 after the game, and it just completely blocks the rook. But I missed during the game that I have just like a fork winning. So he goes rook takes, I go check, king up, king down, doesn't matter, because I go f2 and rook g2. This is our winning device. f2, rook f2, and now I get 2 pieces for nothing. He goes b3. He's trying to win these 2 pawns to force an endgame, 2 pieces against king, but little does he know, I know this endgame, and I've had it in February of last year. Shout out if you know that recap. It's easy to look it up on the channel, but yeah, I did have 2 minor pieces, bishop knight against king, checkmate, which was insane. b4, king here. This was super nice. Here it looks like I'm losing both pawns, but I had a super nice idea in mind. I go knight e3, king takes, and knight c2. And I'd seen this pattern in my endgame book with this pawn being here and this knight being here and the king being here and not being able to hit the knight. And I borrowed from that. And with this bishop helping, this king can just not penetrate and attack this knight ever. My bishop will go here and these squares will all be taken. Like insane, right? Like a literal Fort Knox on the chessboard against this king. And so he resigned here after bishop d3, I believe. But I had like these moves in mind, and then like he can't pierce. So that's the end of the recap. Thank you so much for watching. I have 2 out of 2. This is the first FM I ever beat. See you in the Reykjavik Open.